we have, which is Bitcoin, it's a very static network, relatively speaking, and the infrastructure has been in production for many years at this point. And so it's taken for granted that the infrastructure is secure as well. And I think it's very important that you have secure infrastructure when you're also decentralizing projects, because by its very nature what you're doing is distributing governance, and that slows down decision making, and in some cases it removes the ability to do things like address bugs or hacks or upgrade your protocol. And so when builders are working towards decentralization, and it usually is a path towards as opposed to a final destination of day one, you really have to take into account your security model and ensure that your technology is extremely robust, and then be prepared that once you decentralize it, the decision to upgrade it is no longer exclusively within the hands of the original developers. And in some cases you will not be able to upgrade the protocol and will have to fork it. And again, going back to Bitcoin, you will see the many forks of Bitcoin which have had, you know, low to moderate degrees of success.
So I think to an extent decentralizing a project is like raising a kid. You know, start with essentially hoping that you're going to be able to develop something that is able to take care of itself at the end. And we see a bunch of builders also wanting to decentralize something too fast, and then everything, as you mentioned, everything becomes much more complex as far as growing the project, making it more technologically advanced, ensuring that it's safe actually. So getting to like a sufficient level of decentralization as fast as possible is great, and then this path to completely giving the control away is I would say much more difficult.
An Oracle protocol, and so a little bit of context for those of you who are new. You know, what is an Oracle? What problem do they solve? I think the easiest way to explain it is that blockchains are like black boxes. They don't have access to any information outside of the blockchain, right? A good analogy might be when you put your phone in airplane mode, right? All of a sudden your applications can't, you know, send and receive data anymore, right? And your phone becomes really useless, right? So crypto applications are the same way, and the only way that they can kind of get access to data is through oracles. Oracles are kind of the solution to this problem. So a little bit about like our origin story. You may not have heard of Chronicle, but you may know us by our previous name. So we were part of a company called MakerDAO. I was actually part of the founding team of MakerDAO going back to 2016. MakerDAO is one of the largest DeFi protocols on Ethereum, and it creates the stablecoin DAI, right? And Chronicle is the oracle for Maker, right? So we secure all of the assets in MakerDAO, and since going back to basically June of 2017, right? So we were actually the creators of the first oracle on Ethereum. So, you know, before Chainlink was even a white paper, when we were developing DAI, right, we had to kind of develop everything from scratch, right? There was no DeFi, there was no DEXs, there was no oracles. So we'd actually developed, right, the first oracle on Ethereum. We developed the first DEX on Ethereum, and just so we could eventually develop DAI. So currently, MakerDAO has $6 billion in assets under management in TVL, right? And Chronicle oracles are securing all of those assets right now. So in order to kind of understand, you know, what kind of sets Chronicle oracles apart and what makes them so compelling, I think we kind of have to start with taking like a sobering look at the current landscape, right? So let's start with kind of the price of oracles. The cost of oracles is exorbitant. They use an enormous amount of gas, right? They cost an enormous amount of transaction costs. And this is just due to kind of the fundamental architecture of how oracles are engineered today. And this is a huge problem. In order to give you an idea for the sense of scale of this problem, at MakerDAO in 2021, we probably spent almost $6 million in gas, right? So it can really add up, you know. And for a protocol like Maker, right, they can afford something like that. But what is everybody else supposed to do? Are you just supposed to rely on oracles, you know, that aren't as secure or aren't as decentralized, right? And you know, no, like we shouldn't be cutting corners. We shouldn't be making these trade-offs, right? And typically, the way that you know bring these costs lower are band-aid fixes at best, right? Maybe you update the oracle less frequently, right? But now the oracle is less accurate if you're not updating the data as often, right? Or maybe you use a smaller set of validators, right? But now the oracle is less secure and less decentralized because only a few parties now need to collude to kind of manipulate the oracle. So these are not really viable fixes for this oracle scalability problem. They're more like band-aid fixes. And so what we really need is a real engineering solution to this problem of scalability. Furthermore, oracles today are kind of like a black box, or they're kind of like fortune tellers. So, when you look at an oracle today, this is kind of what you see, right? Oh, here is a, an asset pair, right? And here is a piece of information, right? Like a price. But you as a user of this oracle, you have no context for this data. You have no guarantees that this data is correct. And you don't know the origin of this data or the provenance of this data. Where did this data come from, right? So you're really just kind of blindly using this data, and that's a really big problem, right? Because we have like these super transparent, blockchains. We've invested billions of dollars into building transparent blockchains, right? Into building decentralized protocols that are transparent. But then when it comes to infrastructure like oracles, we just kind of like are fine with the black boxes that oracles currently are today, right? And we need to solve that problem, right? All data should be verifiable and have kind of provenance and origin and context attached to it. So, what did Chronicle do? Well, we created a new Oracle protocol called Scribe, which addresses all of these existing challenges of oracles. So, if you take nothing else away today except for this slide, this is what I want you to remember. That Chronicle is a decentralized Oracle protocol that is both verifiable and scalable. And so we're going to get into each of these little categories of decentralized beats. You can kind of think of them as validators. And we only select validators that are, the top tier kind of crypto projects, right, who have built up and established a reputation, right, that they are high quality partners, that they operate with integrity, right. And so as a user of a Chronicle Oracle, right, you're not putting your trust, right, in Chronicle. You're putting your trust in this kind of consortium consensus, right, produced by these feeds. And so who these feeds are is incredibly important. Instead, let's kind of delve into verifiability a bit, right? We talked about the importance of data, having kind of context attached to it, right? The provenance of data. And what I want to stress is that, transparency is not enough. What you also need is legibility. And that's where I think kind of verifiability kind of comes into play. Is verifiability is this combination of where transparency meets legibility. And so it's not enough to just be on a blockchain and say, oh, it's transparent because it's all on chain. It's not transparent if, only, a senior Solidity developer, right, can make sense of like a bunch of random hex data, right? It's only really transparent, it's only really verifiable when everyone can do it. And so that's what we've tried to achieve with Chronicle, is when you take a look at our dashboard, right, and you have this Oracle here, right, you don't just see the Oracle price, but you start getting context for, okay, well here we have this price because all of these validators, right, reported the following values. And this price was based off the model, provided by all of the attestations between all of these different validators. But we can go one step further and we can say, well, hey, Arjun, why did you report that your price is, 1554.90, right? We want more context, right? We want to know what is the origin of this data. And you can do that because Arjun says, well, I reported this because I went to Binance and I checked this pair, and I went to Kraken, and I went to Bitstamp, and I went to Gemini, and I went to Coinbase, right? So you really have this end-to-end traceability of like, this is where the data came from, this is what the validators reported, and this is why the Oracle is reporting this particular data as the canonical value on chain, right? And so this is something that no other Oracle does, right? Every other Oracle will just give you like, here's the price, or here's the final piece of data, right? Take it or leave it, right? And that's kind of the anti-pattern that we want to get away from. I think that makes Chronicle really unique and powerful compared to existing Oracle solutions is that we have really solved this scalability problem. Like, we are never going to have this problem again of protocols spending, millions of dollars a year just on the transaction costs to update an Oracle. Like, with Scribe, this is a solved problem. So we've come up with an algorithm which we call optimistic Schnorr. Schnorr cryptography is used heavily in Bitcoin for a number of years now, so it's quite battle tested and battle hardened in terms of its security, but it essentially gives us a really important property. And that property is that instead of having X number of validators, giving data attestations and therefore generating X number of signatures, right? You have this one-to-one relationship of, validator to signature. With Schnorr cryptography, what we can do is we can have many validators, right, work together to generate one signature. And this is kind of the core kind of piece of what makes Chronicle so scalable compared to existing Oracle solutions. And so kind of our goals of this implementation, right, were one, the primary goal was to decouple this relationship of the number of validators kind of being linearly proportional to the transaction costs to update the Oracle. We wanted to, right, because this presents a moral hazard, right, because it means that if you can use less validators, right, to keep the costs lower, right, now the Oracle provider has a moral hazard where, of course they want to use less validators, right? Because it means they can generate more profit. But this is terrible from an end user perspective because less validators means less security and less decentralization, right? So we really wanted to decouple this relationship, right? And this optimistic Schnorr algorithm that we came up with allows us to decouple that relationship. So unlike other protocols, other Oracle protocols which have to limit the amount of validator, right, and have limited security, limited decentralization, Chronicle can support a near unlimited amount of validators for the same kind of fixed Oracle update cost. And that's like that's the secret sauce. That's what makes Chronicle so amazing, right? So in terms of the kind of cost of the Oracle, right, I mean, we've really managed to scale this at the limit, right? To give you an example of just how low 66,000 gas is, 21,000 gas is the default kind of Ethereum, transaction amount that you pay, right? It does, if you were to send an ETH to someone, right, it costs 21,000 gas, right? So, 66,000 is very, very much at the limit. So, for those of you who are more technical, I want to give like a very, very brief rundown of how the algorithm works. For the rest of you, like,
I think that we will have stable coins and we will have CBDCs and they will interact with each other for two reasons. One reason, there are many stable coins that are just used internally in commercial banking for settlement, maybe with third parties, and they won't necessarily be available to everybody publicly. So bank issue stablecoins is a thing, and it will be a thing that's going to stay for a long time. So those kinds of stablecoins will exist. And the second reason is that not all jurisdictions are in a position where they're able to issue a CBDC for political reasons, for economic reasons, for whatever other reason, they're just not at that point in time. But they will want the benefits that you get from digital cash. So I foresee, at least for the near future, probably the mid-term future.
Aleph0 is a layer 1 blockchain that is privacy enhanced. And what it means is that you have a public network that supports private transactions and private computations. The USP of Aleph0, I would say, is, well, two things. First is speed, then it's the privacy component. And whenever we talk about privacy, especially on-chain in a public environment, there are two things to take into account. First is UX, and second is compliance, or enabling compliance for different use cases. So we're addressing all of the above. We're very happy to have over 40 teams building on top of the network, and are very much looking forward towards the future.
Thank you.
I am Nicholas Kunkel, and I'm the founder of Chronicle Protocol. And Chronicle Protocol is an oracle. We're the oracle for MakerDAO, so we're securing almost $8.5 billion of all the assets that are MakerDAO. And last month we finally launched the oracle, and now it's available for everyone. And so what makes Chronicle so unique compared to other Oracle solutions like Chainlink or Redstone or Pyth is that, we are much more scalable. And what does that mean in terms of like hard numbers? It costs us 5 times less to do an Oracle update than someone like Chainlink, right? Which means that we can pass those types of savings onto our customers by charging much less for the Oracle. And we can also afford to update our Oracle much more frequently, right? Which makes our Oracle much more accurate than our competitors. The other cool thing about Chronicle is that if you go to our dashboard, you can kind of trace the provenance and like origin of where data came from. So instead of just looking at an Oracle contract like a fortune teller or a black box saying like, here's the price or here's the data, you get all of the context of, well, the Oracle says this is the price or this is the piece of data because here's the validators and here's what each of the validators said the data should be. And then, so say, you have Gnosis is a validator and they report, ETH is 1600, and then you have Infura as a validator and they report, 1580, right? You can even go one step further and use the dashboard to explore, well, why did this validator report this particular price, right? Why did Gnosis report 1580 for the price of ETH? And it will show you the trace and say, well, Gnosis went to Binance and they got this price, and they went to Coinbase and they got this price, they went to Kraken, right? So you get this end-to-end traceability from like the raw data source to the validator all the way to the Oracle contract, right? And Chronicle is the only Oracle solution that allows you to do this like verifiable kind of tracing of the data. So this combination of scalability and decentralization and verifiability, I think makes Chronicle kind of a very unique, compelling Oracle solution compared to the rest of the Oracle space.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Successful tournaments, and then in 2020, your company acquired Meta Worlds, and which is actually a blockchain gaming company. And from the acquisition of Meta Worlds, there was the you gave birth to Chili Cheese games. And by the way, I always love the reference to cheese, to queso and cheese. So tell us a little bit about why you did that transition and what was your motivator to go from Web 2 to Web 3?
Sure. So thank you, everybody. Just a little bit of context so that you understand the transition. I started about 10 years ago uploading videos to YouTube. Right now my channel has over 5 million subscribers in Spanish, and it's one of the biggest YouTube channels for Spanish-speaking markets, specialized on mobile gaming. And 6 years ago I decided to start my esport team. It's called Team Queso. The cheese reference is just because I'm a fanatic
cheese
of Pulp Fiction. Yeah, I'm cheese lover, but I'm also I like Pulp Fiction, so it's just because of that scene. So I mean, fun story. esports, it's just competing in video games, and it's a really difficult and challenging industry. So from the very beginning, we had in mind that we needed to diversify and to find different ways to monetize our audience or to engage with our fans and our audience. And we decided that one of the best ways to do so is to develop for them the best mobile gaming experience, so that the best way to develop the best experience is to do it by yourself. So it was not exactly an acquisition, it was more like a partnership or a joint venture where a studio just came in and say, hey, you know what, you know a lot about content creation, you know a lot about mobile gaming, and you know a lot about competition, so we do know about programming and about developing, so let's build together the best mobile game and the best mobile gaming experience. So that's how Chili Cheese Games was born. It's the new studio. We are completely open since day one to blockchain and to the new world if we can find a way to add value to our players via Web3. So that's the story.
Super cool, very interesting. Now, Aidan, to you, you just told me in front of the stage I should be more challenging with my questions. So, yeah, Upland is actually a virtual world which replicates the real world, meaning that in Upland I can basically find every street that you have in the real world.
I would say it maps to the real world, doesn't necessarily replicate it. We like to joke and say it's a fork of the real world.
Okay. But since you started this, first of all, maybe very quickly about what inspired you to do that with your co-founder, and then, as you want me to be challenging, what was like the biggest ups and downs, especially since the beginning of the journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what inspired us was actually the game of Monopoly, and you know, who has played Monopoly as a person? Everybody has. And we, but taking a step back, we kind of like started this journey around late 2017, 2018. And this was just when NFT became a technology, it came out. And when we looked at the technology, you know, it's not intuitive to understand how it works, but once you get it, you pretty much understand that the future of digital economies is forever changed. Because the hypothesis, and we still maintain that hypothesis, is that every digital asset that anybody cares about in this world on a long enough trajectory will become either an NFT or some kind of evolution or permutation of that technology. Why? Because the value proposition of true ownership is better than fake ownership or non-ownership.
Absolutely.
And that's basically the inspiration. And for us, kind of like we envision that world that maps to the real world with an open economy based on true ownership. And our main focus was to try to deliver that value proposition to as many mass consumers as possible in the world.
That's, I agree with Aidan. I mean that's play to earn. It's a way of the bad old days. Right now, user acquisition is super difficult, and I think that one of the challenging parts, particularly for the Web3, is that the games has to be fun, so that the people plays the game. The mentality that you get into a game to become rich, it's over and it won't come back again. So we are focused since day one to build a good experience, the best possible experience for the player, so that we will get enough amount of users to have the critical mass to then implement some technology, some blockchain technology that adds value to the player. So that's why we completely reject the term play to earn, because you play to have fun in a way. And then eventually you will earn something, but you won't ever play to earn anything besides having fun. So that's the whole idea of the standing.
Yeah, and I truly believe that this is the longer lasting one, and the true gamer heart that is beating in your chest.
It's the only way to get the user, to get the player. Otherwise, I mean, you are not getting players, you are not getting users, you are getting investors.
Yes.
And this is very perverse.
Yeah. Aidan, so you told me you're about to launch Sparklet, which is a new utility token within your ecosystem, and it allows creators to build in the metaverse. can you walk us through the specifics, like what are the utilities, and also a little bit of comparison to UPX, your in-game currency?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, the Spark token has already been active inside of Upland for 2 years. So this is in Upland. We have two fungible currencies. One is called Apex. It's the value carrier. This is the way to exchange value in between players in the Upland ecosystem. And the other is Spark. This is a resource token that you use to build things. So either buildings on your properties, you can manufacture cars and carts, you can create outdoor decor. Anything that you want to build and create in Upland does require that token. So currently what we're doing right now, and again, this is based on the slightly changing regulatory environment in the US, which up until now has not allowed us to make our tokens tradable outside of Upland. Then we are basically taking Spark and making it, through a bridge to Ethereum, we're making it tradable on centralized exchanges. And this is our current plans. And by the way, this ties back to what I mentioned about growth, how difficult it is to growth. One of the growth engines that we kind of like want to add on top of that is now having that type of visibility to the Web3 native ecosystem through a tradable token. So this is something we haven't been able to enjoy up until now because we are US based. But now the things are changing. So this is very exciting for us. And in general, again, we've always envisioned Upland to be a platform for creators. So the way we do things is we introduce new features. So let's take, for example, cars and racing, right? Cars is an entire ecosystem in Upland. You can take your car and travel in between cities. You can race it against your friends in multiplayer racing games inside of Upland neighborhoods. And the way we do it, we first envision the technology, the utility. We demonstrate it to our community, but then we delegate that to our community and allow anybody to build their own UGC creations. So being their own car brands, racing carts, we encourage them to create speedways.
And building their own businesses.
Exactly, and we call them meta ventures.
Meta ventures.
In Upland, yes.
So cool.
And we want we want to lower the barrier for players to become entrepreneurs in the metaverse. And this is how in Upland you actually create value. We mentioned play to earn or play and earn. For us, the earn element is basically taking a player that's having fun, but then they are going to connect with their communities and they are going to envision new ways they can create and bring value into Upland. And this is how they earn, not just by speculating or by trading. It's by creating value, creating that flywheel that the more players we have, the more meta entrepreneurs we have in the ecosystem, the more valuable it becomes to the entire ecosystem. And then finally, when we added on top of it our third-party developer platforms, which allows anybody to connect any of their offerings to Upland, expand it, recreate it, without having any constraints in an open economy. This is kind of like the mega creator platform that we're shooting for. And to tie it back, Sparklet is going to be the resource that basically powers that entire creation process.
User acquisition is super difficult, and I think that one of the challenging parts, particularly for the Web3, is that the games has to be fun so that the people plays the game. The mentality that you get into a game to become rich, it's over and it won't come back again. So we are focused since day one to build a good experience, the best possible experience for the player, so that we will get enough amount of users to have the critical mass to then implement some technology, some blockchain technology that adds value to the player. So that's why we completely reject the term play to earn, because you play to have fun in a way, and then eventually you will earn something, but you won't ever play to earn anything besides having fun. So that's the whole idea of the standing.
Yeah. I read that you have recently partnered with FIFA and NFL Players Association. What is the experience from a user perspective when I go to Upland? How can I experience that in the Upland ecosystem?
Yeah, so with these partnerships, and these are two out of many that we've had. It's based at the end of the day on NFTs that are collectibles, but it always comes with utility and gamification. So, for example, with FIFA World Cup, you could own Messi's last goal of his World Cup career as an NFT in Upland, and by the way, currently it's the only place in the world where you have these types of NFTs, but you couldn't just buy it, you couldn't just mint it, you had to play, so it was like a Panini. Do you guys know Panini, obviously, with football? So it's like, imagine like a Panini on steroids, right? So instead of cards, you have 3D items that are official FIFA license, and you have to collect them. First of all, you have to trade with your peers, you have to complete collections, you have to build up your fan score, and then you have exchange mechanism, and at the end of the day, the top of the pyramid, you get a shot to basically get those top of the, top of the value collectibles, such as the actual goals from the World Cup. I'll give you another example. We have another ecosystem which we just recently launched. It's called Stock Car Pro Series. It's the Brazilian version of NASCAR racing. If you know, it's kind of like stock cars.
Cool.
So this is an ecosystem where, again, you have these collectibles which are drivers' suits and helmets, right? But you also have the cars. You also have the actual racetracks in the real world. And you have to race in order to compete for the grand prizes. So it's not just about getting the NFT and trading it. It's way beyond. It's creating utility and fun and engagement. And suddenly, you know what? There are, these cafes spawn when people go together to have watch parties as the race is going, and everybody's coming in their driver suits and their wearables. These are the ecosystems we're shooting for. Yeah. It's an evolving world. And we're happy kind of like to be part of the companies that are spearheading it. But at the end of the day, when I look at my kids today, when they meet their friends not in person, they meet them in gaming platforms. So my young ones will meet them in Roblox, my older one will meet them in either GTA or Fortnite or whatever. But to them it's native, and when they grow up, then they are going to be relying on platforms such as Upland to basically experience the immersive web. The web is not going to stay 2D as it is today. Yeah. The web will evolve into an immersive version, and our kids, it's enough to watch them how they interact today to be convinced that this is how things will happen in the future.
We have time for one last question, I hope, because I think this is super cool for the audience as well to know, you as the experts and being in that space for such a long time, it's a question to both of you, what is your advice for entrepreneurs or developers that want to, get a foot in that industry of gaming and even Web3 gaming, very briefly?
I mean, for me, super quick and obvious advice, which is that, Web3 gaming, it's gaming after all, so just build games or build gaming platforms that are good. Easy to say, difficult to implement, but it is what it is. I think that all the confusion that we've had with Web3 is just some confusion and reminders of the bad times. And it's all about making good stuff. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I think it probably is different of whether or not you have access to funding or you don't. And I would assume for a second that most companies that start up, they don't have access to significant funds. In which case, my advice would be, the first thing you do, build your community. Even if it's just an idea, even if it's just like videos, get out there, establish a community, even if it's like dozens of people. But if you start from there, and if you take first of all, recruit the first people who are passionate about what you're going to do, and then follow their lead, actually. Be integrated them. I think one of the best things that we did in Upland 5 years ago, our very first hire was a community manager. And this is such a stark difference. My previous experience was with casual games, with social casino. And back then, we were so disconnected from our community, and this experience is so much different. And you don't underestimate the value of what your community can offer you to guide you in this journey that you're about to embark on. So that would be my advice.